All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
I love a parade, and I'm still just floating on air after that big military send-off that Donald Trump got on Saturday. Yeah, it was really special. But I love the parade of guests that will join us today. You got it, baby. John Rothmann, bottom of the hour. When it comes to the Middle East, this guy has real knowledge, real sources. We'll discuss strategy. I'm talking about diplomatic strategy, I suppose military strategy that is changing quite substantially as a result of the initiation of hostilities on the part of the Israelis toward Iran. Oh, there's the military parade. Thank you. Great to see my Lord and Savior on his birthday with the review stand there resplendent with all of those MAGA faithful, the Hegseth, Melania. I think she is contractually obligated to be there, but still, she, I'm sure, is enjoying herself. Marco Rubio, all of those who have sold their souls, they're all there around my Lord and Savior. But our special guest today is Leigh Ann Caldwell. She is most recently from Puck News. I subscribe to, read regularly. She's also former columnist of the Washington Post, covers Washington in a big, big way. I have a lot of questions for her about the legislative status of that big, beautiful bill, as it's called, that monstrosity as it moves through the Senate. Will definitely take on some changes, but whether those changes will be significant enough to really matter on, ultimate passage, we'll have to see. I mean, there's a lot of political momentum right now to pass that, but it does include substantial cuts to programs that Americans count on. And so I'll, Medicare among them, but I'll talk to her about that and also about everything going on in Washington, the changing face of MAGA in Washington. This bill actually dovetails with this military issue that faces Trump and this administration. And it dovetails from the standpoint of MAGA support. Donald Trump was, I'd suggest he vaulted into office for a bunch of reasons. There might even be questionable legitimacy about vote. We can discuss that, and we will discuss that in a future episode. But just on issues and policy, Trump had the talking points that seemed to capture Americans' imagination, Americans in sufficient numbers for him to win an election. Again, win an election. He was able to really hit immigration and border policy. That is a winner. It's a winner for most of us, He had to do something at the border, and he did. And he said, these guys have done nothing. I'm going to do something. He also, of course, engineered derailing a real immigration bill that was in the last year of the Biden administration going to be transformative, potentially. I mean, with thousands of immigration judges being appointed, additional immigration judges, with many more troops at the border, it did look as though it was a GOP bill. It looked as though that was going to change the arithmetic on immigration, but Trump derailed that because he wanted immigration as a political issue to help win. He said as much, and so they did derail it. But in addition to immigration, he positioned himself as kind of a no wars guy. I'm going to end all conflict, all U.S. conflict. And to me, it was absurd because, in my judgment, Trump had always wrapped himself in the military. He always, he's someone who wraps himself in the flag generally. It's sort of a paper patriotism, a one-dimensional patriotism. And he wraps himself in the military, yeah.
But when it comes to supporting veterans, he's always been on the wrong side of that.
Well,
so
you
could say you support the military, but then when you turn around and take money from them or take care from them, that's not supporting the military.
Right. And so that's the one-dimensional nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have a military parade, and then those very veterans who attend that parade, they have fewer benefits than ever before under his administration, and fewer still maybe in the future as a result of cuts. So there is something to that. But to the other point I was going to make, and this is where it really dovetails, he seems to be hot to get into some kind of conflict. He seems to have an aggressive posture, military posture, toward any number of potential theaters of war. In his first 2 weeks, he was talking about a potential invasion of Canada, Mexico, and Greenland. Now, you can say, well, we all knew that was absurd. He didn't play it off like it was absurd. So, to me, it was, it's all a fraud. And that people couldn't see this clunky con, you've already been through it once, is just reflecting what is an electorate that has its own issues. Americans, we have our own issues. We have our own problems with how we think, what we believe, how underinformed we are. We have these problems. And we also have single issue voters who showed up in a big way, I'd suggest, particularly kind of the Joe Rogan voters who were animated by anti-vax propaganda and their positions on personal freedoms as reflected by COVID policy. So that was all wrapped up in that. Why am I telling you all this? Because it's an inflection point in MAGA land now that Donald Trump is taking an aggressive posture toward Iran. And so there is a splinter that is beginning to appear in MAGA support. It's still there, but it's wavering when it comes to Trump moving forward. This is an interesting political issue, but the other issue that it coexists with is this immigration issue, the thing that, as I say, vaulted him into the presidency. And there's a lot of discussion about the ICE raids, of course, the heavy-handed nature of the ICE raids, the arrest of American citizens, the arrest of anyone who gets in the way, whatever gets in the way means. The mayoral candidate in New York was in the hallway and he's arrested. I mean, they handcuff, they deliberately handle with a particular brutality these situations as if to have a chilling effect on political speech, on political dissent. Add to that the political discourse that's become so hypercharged and toxic, and you have the kind of thing that we had in Minnesota over the weekend. You have political violence. And so I just say that this moment in time is a critical moment in time, not only for the country, but for this president, Donald Trump. I mean, again, I get that it's just theater and he's just kind of playing president. He'd rather really golf, be surrounded by yes men and women. That's what he's done. But the yes men and women are equally vapid. He's put in place people who don't know where the men's room is, much less how to run the Department of Defense. And Pete Hegseth is a fraud. And there are frauds all around Donald Trump. And those are the people who know nothing, who he's getting advice from, but their prime directive is not actually giving advice to Donald Trump. Their prime directive is to do what? To show fealty to Donald Trump. Whatever you say, sir. Yes, sir. Great idea. Oh, my God. That's the kind of innovative thinking, sir, that we need. Yes, yes, yes.
Kind of like how we're supposed to bow to the Mark Thompson fealty, right?
Well, let me say, Kim, you mentioned that, and I know you're kind of joking, but I think we could use a little more Hegsethiness around here, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. No.
I'm talking about little ass kissing wouldn't hurt. You know what I'm saying?
What?
I just said it.
Oh.
Every one of you likes to take me on all the time. And you don't know, and it's really good. The Hegseth thing is a really good parallel because you guys don't know what you're talking about either.
Yeah.
And yet you still come after me. And you try to push back just so it makes doing the job a little more difficult.
You just don't get it.
Yeah, you don't.
You don't.
You don't. So thank you for mentioning that, Kim.
You're welcome.
I think you need to have a meeting with yourself. And you should.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Think about a little more fealty on this crew. Albert is here, by the way.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, and Kim is here. You've heard Kim chitting all the way. And thank you, Gordon. Mark, I'm on your side. Thank you. We need a little more Gordoning around here. How about a little more Gordoning from all of you?
Gordon is a turncoat.
All right. Now, against that backdrop, we have a lot to talk about. Kim wanted me to mention Ann Burrell passed away from the Food Network. She was the host of The Worst Cooks in America. Died young, 55.
Yeah, it looks like maybe a heart attack or something. And she'd just been traveling to Florida and doing all kinds of things and being really active. What a total bummer to hear that.
Did you watch that show? Are you familiar with that show?
Yeah, my husband is a cook here. I mean, not as a profession, but he's the cook at our house, and he loves to watch cooking shows. And so he'll often have the Food Network on in the past. And so that's how I got to see her and know her. And she's great. You're
just passing through while your staff in the form of your husband is preparing dinner. Is that what
I'm not really gonna cook anything, but I enjoyed her personality. Yeah.
Right. Just like
it's a surprise to see her pass away so soon.
Yeah, it really is. It is young, 55. Quite sad. I would say that at 104, Betsy, I don't know how she says her last name, Yoakum or Jokum. She was the last original member of women's baseball in the form of a league of women baseball players.
Like a league of their own? They
inspired the film A League of Their Own.
Oh, cool.
She won a batting title, stole 127 bases in 1944. It's pronounced Jokum.
Okay.
And she played for the South Bend Blue Sox, one of 4 teams in what was initially called the All-American Girls Softball League. And then they started that league to maintain fan interest. It was started by the Chicago Cubs owner. Anyway, she passes away. She was 104. So someone who made a difference, was an extraordinary, I guess, personality. And there she is. She lived a long life, 103. And then someone else in the...
we could use those speed on the base paths for my Giants.
Yeah, Giants.
Along with our new guy, Rafael Devers.
How about that, though? You got yourself like
look at that picture. Love it.
Yeah, it's a great pick.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ann Burrell, who was cheated out of so much of her life, dead at 55. So, sad indeed. All right. Now,
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, I want to follow up on a few things. First of all, thank you all your super stickers and super chats, and thank you everybody for hitting the thumbs up.
Smash
it definitely
with your iron rod.
Does affect us in the algorithms of YouTube. Donald Trump was asked about his disposition toward Iran and joining the Israeli military moves into Iran. He said this.
Have you been answered questions about whether you are moving closer or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine. You would have had a country. It's very sad to watch this. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's so, everyone thought it was going to be the reverse. I didn't think so. And I was telling them, you gotta do something. You gotta negotiate. And at the end, last minute, they said, no, we're not going to do that. And they got hit. Remember 60 days? And then came the 60. 61 is going to become a very famous number. That was one hell of a hit. That first hit, that was one hell of a hit. Not sustainable, to be honest. That's where it ended. It ended on the first night. Yes.
Is it too late, though? Do you think it's too late to now?
Really, nothing's too late. The only thing too late is Powell. Powell's too late. Too late, Powell.
Have the Iranians reached out to you, Mr. President?
What?
Have the Iranians reached out to you?
Yes.
And what did you say?
I said it's very late. You know? I said it's very late to be talking.
Okay, so that's a bit of Trump. He's not going to give you anything more than that. But what you're getting from him, and I think you actually do get it a little bit, is how intractable he may be on this, you know. So for all of the negotiation, in the end, he really may come down on the side of militarism, you know. Who are the guys in the construction hats? Asks Ivy Kaminsky. Who are they, Kim?
They are workers installing new flagpoles in the Rose Garden. They tore up part of the Rose Garden. They're putting the flagpoles in. But I thought it was pretty funny that this guy's a construction worker and he's behind yucking it up with Trump as if he's some policymaker or some White House person or just some random member of the public who's, you know, chuckling along right behind Trump. That's
well,
funny.
I'll say that he's as qualified as the president's cabinet. So
yeah, there you go.
You can, you know, you can stow the hard hat and just have a seat at the table, and you're absolutely as informed as most of the people around that table. They're all playing cabinet members. They're playing Washington. They're playing administration figures and political figures. Why does he always talk like a mob boss chastising one of his underlings? Says Kurt. Yeah, well, he has a kind of mobster view of things. My way or no way. Trump would not send his son to war, nor did he serve himself. If there was a war, Trump would be down in the bunker, says Vilma. There is an irony to the fact that Trump is so wrapped in the military, and yet he did skirt military service aggressively. And to be fair to Trump, and I know that's a weird thing to hear me say, but there were a lot of people skirting military service during Vietnam. Most of the people who skirted military service, who got out of it, they were of the moneyed class. They found ways to get a deferment of one sort or another. The way Trump got a medical deferment, there were also student deferments. People fled to Canada. I mean, there was real, if you want to call it, draft dodging going on. You know, it was a scary time in America from the standpoint of young men being drafted into a war that they knew was both brutal, was killing tens of thousands of young Americans, and was also serving no end. It was clear that there was no real end. But point is, Trump is someone who doesn't know jack about military history, doesn't know anything. It would be one thing if he were a draft dodger from the Vietnam period, but, you know, had since immersed himself in military history, or even just was roughly acquainted with military history, or just hadn't smeared gold star families. I mean, anything. But he's been, I think, disrespectful to the military in the extreme, and then he wraps himself in the military at every chance he gets. So Trump will ask them, are there any illegals here on this crew of flagpole?
Apparently he did, yeah.
Did he really? Wow.
I'm seeing it. I hadn't seen it. Maybe if we continue with that video, but there's two people in the chat who said it was sick when he asked them if there's any illegals here. Yeah.
Taller flagpoles, says Teacher Lori G. Yeah. Back to binging Scandal. She always Teacher Lori always goes, you know, I've got you guys on, but I'm watching Scandal. I'm watching The Young and the Restless, but I've got you guys on too. By the way, somebody suggested, and then I want to get to these congressional hearings. Somebody suggested that they're Senate hearings, actually, that Teacher Lori be gifted a spot in the June Swoon meetup, the virtual meetup that's coming up a week from tomorrow. And so someone, and I have to go back and look, actually pledged money to help Teacher Lori join the June Swoon, which is really cool. Teacher Lori, I guess, you know, she's had some problems financially, etc. I think I contributed to her GoFundMe. But anyway, it was I have also held out a couple of spots that are kind of Mark Thompson shows scholarship spots. If you want to just join us on Thursday, it'll be a week from tomorrow for our June Swoon virtual meetup. I am holding out a couple that I will give to members of the audience. There it is, June Swoon. And for most, it's a fundraiser for the show and also a chance to hang with our audience. 2 hours, 6:30 Pacific time it starts, 9:30 in the East, Thursday. That's a week from tomorrow, as we are speaking with you on a Wednesday, the 26th. 2 hours of swooning with special guests. Rothmann may be by for it. David K. Johnston may come by for it. David Katz, Spencer Christian, Michael Schur, Josh Mankiewicz from Dateline NBC. It's June Swoon, the $50 donation to PayPal. When you give it to us through PayPal, you just note it's for June Swoon, or you say meetup, whatever. The PayPal links are under all our videos, and you can find them on the website too, themarkthompsonshow.com. Again, note June Swoon, and then drop an RSVP to me and say, hey, I did it. You know, I locked it up, and I'll make sure that we keep your spot. mtsmeetup@gmail.com is the RSVP. After you've hit PayPal, hit that mtsmeetup@gmail.com. And we'll see you a week from Thursday for the virtual hang and June Swoon.
The Mark Thompson Show.
If you want to see Pete Hegseth get lit up, you've come to the right place. Pete Hegseth testifying before the Senate. And I will just say there are so many issues regarding the management of the Department of Defense. They are also relevant to this moment. It's difficult to know even where to start. But we put together a handful of them for you, so let's get right into it. Go ahead, Albert. This is, I believe, is this Mazie Hirono?
Yes,
I believe so.
Yes, it is.
Go for it. Yeah, she's from Hawaii.
Aloha.
Seth, you've had a tough start. At your confirmation hearing, my Democratic colleagues and I rightly questioned whether you had the requisite qualifications and experience to lead the DoD, the largest federal agency, especially given your checkered past, which included paying $50,000 in hush money to settle a sexual assault allegation against you and driving 2 veterans organizations into the ground. After only months on the job, our concerns about you have proven true, as far as I'm concerned. Instead of strengthening national security, you've turned the Pentagon into a dysfunctional mess. You are jeopardizing military operations and service members' lives with your unprecedented action of texting classified military plans to anyone who might stroke your ego. Leading the Department of Defense is more than just a PR campaign filled with photo ops. While you pose for cameras, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine continues unabated. Israel and Iran are also at war, in large part because your boss tore up a multilateral agreement former President Obama brokered with the UK, France, Germany, China, and Russia that curbed Iran's nuclear program and ambitions. Meanwhile, China advances in the Pacific as this regime undermines and attacks our allies. At a time when steady leadership is critical, we are confronted with crisis and instability. Mr. Secretary, close to 5,000 Marines and National Guards have been deployed to LA without the request or consent of the California governor or the Los Angeles mayor, Bass. Rather than calming the situation, this troop deployment is purposefully inflaming and escalates tensions. You claim lethality is your top priority. Do you plan to unleash this lethal force against U.S. citizens and civilians in LA and other cities?
Well, Senator, I would reject most of the characterization of that statement, including lethality against U.S. cities, when all of those National Guardsmen and Marines have conducted themselves with the utmost of professionalism, defending our federal agents, Americans, who deserve to be able to do their job to deport illegal immigrants after the previous administration allowed 21 million
I am
illegals
not
to
here to
cross our
listen
border.
to rhetorical responses. I would like to have a professional response that I would expect from somebody who is the Secretary of Defense. Millions of people peacefully demonstrated.
You can stop there, Albert. The key there, I think that there's several keys. Of course, he's evasive, and you'll see he's even more evasive. But the other thing is that he and so many of Trump's cabinet officials do this, they all default to the praise of the leader and disparaging the last leader. And so, we had under Biden, unlike the last administration, unlike the Biden administration, we're handling the situation with immigration in America's cities, et cetera. You have to get that body check to the glass in every time in order to, keep your cred with the president. Continue, Albert. This is, show me the next one. I forget who we got.
Senator Warren.
Oh, this is Elizabeth Warren, who, of course, puts him on the griddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So President Trump has deployed the National Guard and then the U.S. Marines to Los Angeles over the objections of state and local officials, saying that the troops are needed to support immigration detention operations that are being carried out by ICE. On Sunday night, the president threatened to deploy ICE agents to other cities around the country that he sees as, quote, the core of the Democrat power center, end quote, specifically mentioning Chicago and New York. Secretary Hegseth, if the president wanted to deploy Marines to Chicago and New York City like he did in Los Angeles, would you carry out that order even if the local governors and mayors objected?
Well, Senator, because Governor Newsom was unwilling to address
That's not my
protecting
question.
federal law enforcement agents in Los Angeles, President Trump had all the authorities, and the Defense Department happily supported defending our ICE agents in the conduct of their job. They have the right as Americans to be able to do their job without being attacked by mobs. And we will protect them in that
I know
process.
that
And
you
if
heard
other
my
states
question.
needed it, we would provide that.
I know that you heard my question. So you would be willing to send troops if the president ordered it to Chicago, New York City? That's right.
Well, thankfully, New York City, unlike California, unlike Gavin Newsom, is willing to step up and address the issue with their local law
I will
enforcement.
take that as a yes. How about if the president says he wants to send troops to 15 cities? Would you be willing to do that?
Senator, I don't accept your hypothetical because it's
That's a hypothetical.
Not a real
That's
one.
the question. You're the Secretary of Defense. Would you send troops to 15 cities if the president said do it? Would you do it? 15 cities.
Again, Senator, it's a complete hypothetical lacking any context
Look,
at all.
You're the Secretary
And I refuse
of
to box
Defense.
myself in based on
Well, you can
questioning on a
refuse, but
hypothetical.
you're here asking for $1 trillion, and I want to know how you're going to spend it. And so my question is, if Donald Trump tells you to send troops to 15 American cities, are you going to spend the money and send the troops?
Thankfully, we're spending money on securing our southern border, a way the previous administration
my
abandoned
God.
and allowed
Okay, so you're
21
not gonna
million
answer
illegals to
that
enter our
question
country. So
anyway.
defending
So
our
that-
homeland is a real.
Yeah, once again, I hate that word homeland, but it reminds me of Nazi Germany. But the
answer is yes. Yes, he's going
yeah,
to do
of course,
whatever
he's already
Trump
done
wants
it.
him to do. Right.
in Los Angeles, and he rejects a hypothetical. You reject a hypothetical that's not even a rejectable hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely grounded in reality. I mean, Donald Trump has just done it. He's just dispatched the Marines to Los Angeles. Then he talked about dispatching military to Democratic core cities. Of course, he goes Democrat or whatever, core cities. But the idea somehow that this isn't grounded in reality and it's a hypothetical that would never happen, that's absurd. It's happening right now. It's very relevant, that question. Now, you understand, this is a committee concerned with money, and the appropriations process when it comes to the Pentagon has been a little bit perverted, because they put up the Pentagon budget in two different blasts. And they've done that, I think, for strategic reasons. But that's why she is talking about the money part. And go to the Angus King. I just want to show you how completely incompetent Hegseth is. This doesn't relate any longer to troops in American cities. This relates to the money and the appropriations. Go to the Angus King stuff. Do you have that, Albert? I sent it to you, I thought. It might be the last thing I sent you. Great. This is a conversation about the money and testimony about the money. Go ahead.
Senator King, Mr. Secretary, I'm somewhat puzzled. I grew up in Virginia where Robert E. Lee was revered.
He starts with,
I think when I
Harry,
was a
hit the
kid,
pause for a
his birthday
second.
was a-
He starts with the question that is revisited throughout this committee hearing, and that's the renaming of military bases around America that were named for Confederate generals and Confederate war heroes. Those names, of course, replaced for obvious reasons. But this is why King is starting with a reference to this, because Hegseth has been dogged in his defense of going back to the original Confederate general names on these Air Force bases, on these military bases, I should say. Go ahead.
School holiday. But as I grew older and learned more about American history, I learned that he fit the classic definition of a traitor. He
Robert
took up
Lee.
arms against his country. He broke his oath as a member of the United States Army, which he took upon entering his career at West Point. Why are you going through these incredible gymnastics, finding current soldiers or other soldiers to rename? And you slipped a minute ago. You said we're returning these bases to their original names. Robert E. Lee, leading general of the Confederacy, Pickett, the other names. Why are you doing this? I don't understand what the motivation is to rename bases for people who took up arms against their country on behalf of slavery. What possible motivation can there be for this? Who is telling you to do this? Who is urging you to do this?
Senator, the veterans and service members across the country who have deployed from Fort Bragg or Fort Benning or Fort Hood or Fort Pickett, there's a legacy, there's a connection to those bases and to those places, to what they trained for there, what they did for, and what they came home back to. That matters to them. Ask enough of them, as I do all the time, before and later. And we recognize the service of those who were put into the replacement. No one's disputing that. I would never dispute that. What we're looking at is erasing history, erasing names, erasing base names that service members are tied to.
Not
Talk to people that serve at Bragg. Ask people that serve at Fort Bragg or Fort Benning if they like the fact that the names have been returned. And to a man and to a woman, they will tell you, thank God we're back to Fort Bragg, and thank God we're back. And thankfully, because so many men and women in this country have served, there's a Benning and a Bragg and a Pickett and a Hood has a Silver Star or a Medal of Honor that we could rename the base to because of the limits of what Congress allowed us to do. So this is something we've been proud to do, something that's important for the morale of the Army, and those communities appreciate that we've returned it back to what it was instead of trying to play this game of erasing names.
We're not erasing history, Mr. Secretary. We're recognizing history and recognizing that mistakes have been made in this country. The greatest of all was the Civil War, where people took up arms against their country on behalf of the institution of slavery. And to continue the practice of recognizing those people and honoring them by the naming of these bases is, I believe, an insult to the people of the United States. Let me talk about the budget.
This is the part
I don't
really wanted to
understand
hear,
why the budget
so stay with me
is
for 2
coming
more
to
minutes
us
on
in
this.
two pieces.
It's
Why
in
not
two
give us
pieces.
an honest base budget instead of putting a piece of it in recognition, in reconciliation? As I understand it, OMB is saying we're going to have a flat defense budget for the next 4 or 5 years. Are we planning reconciliation every year from now
Stop
on?
for a
Why
second,
not give
Albert.
us an
I just want to
honest
remind
budget?
everybody,
us what you're-
reconciliation is simply a process that's typically linked to money and appropriations that allows a simple majority vote. It allows you to get around having to, win over members of the opposing party to get your budget through. So when he refers to reconciliation and that process, that's what he's talking about. And the two pieces of the budget is what he's questioning. Why not just put one Pentagon budget in place? Now, go ahead.
Priorities are, and then we can consider it. This committee always works in a bipartisan basis on the defense budget. We all want to see some increases in the defense budget, and yet you're giving us this this fake, here's a piece of the budget, here's another. You're cutting in the base budget, you're cutting shipbuilding in half. and saying, well, we're going to make it up in reconciliation. Are we going to have reconciliation every year, which basically, by the way, puts a significant part, 10 or 15% of the defense budget in an wholly partisan decision-making process, whereas in the history of this committee, it's always been bipartisan. Why are we doing it this way?
Senator, from our view, the budget number 961 meets the requirements and threats that we face. And
that's not the number. The number is 892.6. You're adding reconciliation. That's my whole point. Why not give us a base budget of 961 or whatever the right number is, what you consider the right number, and then we can operate and make our decisions. Why do it in this bifurcated way that really is fooling the American people about what the defense budget is?
We're not trying to fool anybody, sir. It's two bills, one budget. We're working with OMB, and we feel very comfortable with the number of 961 billion.
Why don't you give us a straight up budget for the Defense Department? That's my question.
Senator, this is a straight up budget for the Defense Department. It's a 13% increase over what Joe Biden gave us.
It is a two-part defense budget. Part of it is in reconciliation instead of in the budget that's being presented to this committee. This committee only has a partial review of the budget. I don't understand why we can't have an honest, straightforward budget
Albert,
instead of this.
Yeah, and what you're seeing there, and the reason I really wanted you to see it, is you're seeing the utter incompetence of Hegseth. You're seeing how he's a talking head. He was a weekend host, hoping to someday be the weekday host on Fox and Friends. He's scooped up because he's got a good rap and a good look, and that's all that Trump cares about. And he became the Secretary of effing Defense. And so when it comes to running this insanely expensive, complicated personnel hornet's nest that is DOD, you have an utter incompetent in there. So incompetent is Hegseth that he was removed from a veterans charity by the board controlling it because he ran it into the side of a mountain. An effing charity. He can't administrate his way out of a paper bag. And he is running the nation's defense at a time of incredible danger. I mean, we have a potential theater of war emerging in the Middle East. And then you have a president who is bent on settling political scores by dispatching the military to a bunch of Democratic cities that overwhelmingly are blue in the judgment of this president. It's just a sign of the rot and the toxicity in Washington, and I wanted you to see some of it. When they actually have to account for what they're doing, they can't do it, and they just go on bloviating. They just go on with the propaganda, with the talking points. The Biden administration, thank goodness for our fearless leader. Donald Trump, in his wisdom, in his vision. I mean, again, if the guy was wise and he had vision, I'd give him credit for it. It's just talking points, and it's sad and it's dangerous. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have delayed long enough. I do love delaying, but I can delay no longer. My brother from KGO Radio, former colleague, he's a scholar, lecturer, author. When it comes to the Middle East, deep knowledge in the form of the great John Rothmann. Hi, John.
Hi, Mark. By the way, I'm giving you all the credit, all of the felicitations, all of the humble expressions that I possibly can, so I remain in your good graces.
Well, thank you, sir, and I hope that you set an example for the younger boys and girls, because I wish for everyone who watches this show and listens in and even is just passing through, I wish for everyone the kind of fealty that Pete Hegseth shows to Donald Trump, blind loyalty.
I am so blindly loyal that I will join you a week from Thursday at 6:30.
I love it. John will join us for the June swoon. It is wild how this administration is informed completely by those who pledge to the fearless leader and with almost no regard for anything else. I mean, this guy, Hegseth, he sent on that signal chat an insecure communication pathway. He sent information, critical information about an upcoming, in fact, imminent military endeavor, and he included his wife on this same signal chat, and she has no security clearance.
And his brother.
And he did it. Why? Ego. He did it only for that reason. These guys they love to peacock, and they love that flex, the ego flex. And we're in a scary place, John. We're in a scary place.
I agree.
Now, tell me about this moment when it comes to Iran. I saw that the German chancellor said today, Israel has done the dirty work that the rest of the world needs to recognize. And he was suggesting that Israel, in this move of dismantling, derailing the nuclear capabilities of the Iranians, Israel has opened the door for the rest of the world. Can you speak to this moment and this situation? It seems complex, and maybe that oversimplifies it.
Well, first of all, the German chancellor is right. Let me remind you, the German chancellor calls it Israel. Do you know what the Iranian leadership calls it? The Zionist entity. They don't even recognize Israel as a nation. And of course, they are determined to destroy Israel. They've made it very clear that they have said that Israel is a cancer in the Middle East. And they even went so far as to say, how do you treat cancer? With radiation. And what is happening now is that the Israelis are doing the dirty work of the West. They have the unanimous support of Western leaders, and that is to erase Iran's nuclear capability. I do want to make clear about one thing that to me is important, and that has to do with the power of a president of the United States. I've had extensive discussions with you and on KGO, of course, on the question of the War Powers Act. We are not at war. Congress has not declared war. If the president decides to act, he will do it on presidential authority. I had the opportunity to interview Senator Tom Eagleton, who was the author of the War Powers Act and who ultimately voted against it because, as he told me on my program, he said, John, we're giving the president too much power. So let's be clear. The members of the Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, who choose to challenge the power of a president when it comes to moving troops and assigning them their tasks, there's no way to prevent it. This is not a declaration of war. This is a military action, and the president has full authority to do it, whether you agree or disagree. Let me also point out that you have people on the far right, like Tucker Carlson, and you have some Democrats, like Tom Kaine, who are opposed to this action. Tim Kaine, sorry. And so I think it's very important to note that there is a bipartisan sense of concern, but overwhelmingly, I believe Democrats and Republicans will support Israel's action.
Albert, do you have the what John is talking about with Carlson, Tucker Carlson, talking to Ted Cruz? Ted Cruz is kind of a, he's hawkish, to say the least. And here's a little bit of Carlson challenging him on his knowledge of Iran before he says full speed ahead.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? How many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables. Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government. Why is it relevant whether it's, it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant? Because if you don't know anything about the country... I didn't say I don't know anything about what's the ethnic mix of Iran? They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran. You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad. They're trying to murder Trump. Yes, I do. Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that, we're carrying out military strikes today. You said Israel was right with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them. Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity. No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them. You just said we were. We are supporting Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of grandstanding on the part of Carlson there, but
a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. Are you kidding me?
I mean, the political theater is definitely center stage, but I wonder if you could speak to the jihadism on Iran that does typify the kind of position that Cruz has.
Well, you have to understand there is a real division in the Republican Party. That is the Trump Party. There are those who favor military action and those who oppose it. Tucker Carlson, by the way, Donald Trump called him a fool the other day. It's very important to note that Carlson, who is one of the biggest backers of Donald Trump, does oppose American intervention. And we have known for years that Tucker Carlson doesn't really like Jews, and he's made that clear in a number of elements. So my point to you would be that Donald Trump is going to
When did he say he didn't like Jews, by the way?
Oh, his comments about Israel and about Jews in the past have not been particularly complimentary, and you heard that particularly in his interview on Russian television. So
okay.
My point, by the way, that's another point, is he gave Vladimir Putin an absolute free ride.
Oh, he's definitely in the pocket
so
of the Russians.
My point here, and I think it's very important, is in the end, we can debate everything we want, but Donald Trump will ultimately make the decision. If you ask me what Donald Trump is going to do, let me tell you, he has everything in place for an American action against Iran. What that would constitute, how long it would go, that's the real question. And the other thing that we need to understand very clearly is that the goal of Israel is not to topple the government of Iran. What they want is the nuclear threat eliminated. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is talking about regime change. And that is a very important distinction. This is a powerful moment. And let's assume for a minute that the United States joins with Israel in taking out the Fordo nuclear plant. Then the question becomes, will Iran do what the supreme leader has said, and that is begin attacking American targets, meaning American forces in the Middle East? And I think this is a real question. And I think that is the major hesitation of Donald Trump. He doesn't want to be responsible or viewed as being responsible for that kind of action. You might ask me what I think will happen. I believe that in the end, the United States will back the Israelis because they understand it's in American national interest.
First, quick follow-up. Brother Rothmann is right about the platforming that Carlson did of Nazis and white supremacists on his show and beyond. So
thank you for that.
You're right about the Jew hating and the anti-Semitism there.
By the way, can you address the word "we"? Because Donald Trump has used the term "we" several times. That is to say, we control the airspace. The United States doesn't control the airspace. The Israelis control the airspace. We is a term being applied by Donald Trump, and that is why many in Washington believe he is aiming toward supporting the Israelis in a more effective military fashion. One other quick point. You're in Southern California. You may know that several months ago, young Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, the crown prince theoretically, spoke at the Nixon Library. And you can see that on the Nixon Library website. When we talk about an alternative for Iran, there are many who are pushing the idea of restoring Pahlavi, Reza, to the throne. And he has said he would be a bridge toward greater democracy. Well, the point is, you can't replace somebody with nobody. And the question is, who has the support of the United States if we go that direction? The Israelis are not saying that. The Israelis are saying, we don't care what kind of government you have. You want to have a radical Islamic government? Okay, but stay out of our way because we're going to respond. And what the Israelis have done, which is absolutely phenomenal, unprecedented in our military history, and I say the West collectively, is they have taken control of what the situation is in Iran militarily. We've never seen such a complete victory, not since 1967 when the Israelis destroyed the air forces of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria.
So when you say complete victory, you're describing the decapitation of the Iran.
No, I'm talking about controlling Iranian
Okay.
airspace.
I thought you were talking. Well, I was going to get to that, but they also took out all the Iranian leadership. They decapitated all their military.
And you know what was crazy? The Iranian leadership all went in one room. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it was definitely it was miscalculation. I would say also, and I think it's relevant that I'll just use the word again: the decapitation of that military leadership is a problem for the regime of Iran right now, because from a military standpoint, you've lost your top strategist. So
he has no strategist. He has no army control. He has no intelligence. And by the way, you'll notice they have tapered off in terms of the number of missiles that are being fired into Israel. And actually, last night, they started using mobile missile launching because their basic grounded missile launchers have all been destroyed by the Israelis. At least that's the view up to this point. So when we go to West Point to discuss military strategy, Mark, as you and I may do one day, what you will find is that what the Israelis have accomplished in these 6 days has been one of the most phenomenal military victories in world history. And
Inlay says this isn't an Israel versus Iran thing. This is the world against Iran thing. If Israel doesn't do it, the USA must get rid of the nukes.
Correct.
Regime changes tend not to work long term.
And by the way, did you note in the G7, which after Trump left became the G6, did you notice their support for Israel was very clear? Now, in the end, there was no final declaration because Donald Trump declined to participate in a final declaration by the G6. So that's
Joan actually says what I think, which is Trump just wants credit if it looks good for Israel. I agree. If it looks like it was going well, which it did look and still looks like it's going well militarily, Trump wants to take credit for it. He was quick to jump in right away going, yeah, I knew about it. Yeah, I advised them. I sent them the plans. I flew the planes or whatever he wants. He wants to take credit. If it starts to take on water, and it will, John, this is why I mentioned it. This is going to start to take on water politically for him. He's going to lose part of his MAGA base that doesn't want anything to do with another theater of war. He may modify this position. I'd be very careful about counting on the American administration in the form of Donald Trump. He turns like a leaf in autumn, like he literally just can be blown right off of whatever position he maintained doggedly the day before.
We agree completely on that.
Now, let me ask you about something that you touched on, and I think this is the whole thing. Once you've weakened Iran militarily, once you've taken care of this threat, and you will concede that the kind of uranium enriching that they're doing, subterranean, a lot of it hasn't been dramatically affected yet by...
At Fordo.
Right. So you'll need American help, I think. So all of that, let's assume it all works out. What happens in Iran politically is really a roll of the dice, John. I mean, you could end up with an administration there that could be more radical than the one we've just been dealing with.
I'm not trying to predict that. And I want you to know the Israelis have been very centered in their concern. They have said we have only one thing we want to deal with, and that is the nuclear threat. The rest, we are not involved in. And I think that is the important point, that the Israelis are acting in their best interest, but I would suggest in the best interest of the world. Look, who in the Arab world is most thrilled with what the Israelis are doing? Saudi Arabia. They've given the Israelis permission to use their airspace because the Saudis understand the threat of Iran. And you'll notice the deafening silence from the Gulf states, from Jordan, and the others, because they understand that what Iran is trying to do would subvert them as well. So I can't tell you what will happen the next day, but I can tell you that if the Israelis achieve their victory over Iran in terms of their nuclear threat, that'll be a big plus. And by the way, that helps Benjamin Netanyahu. You must know that in Israel, the entire country has united behind Netanyahu on this. All of the opposition leaders, all the people who were talked about as criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu on a variety of levels are now supporting this effort. I've never seen Israel as unified frankly, since the 1967 and 73 war. It's astounding.
John, it's worth noting, don't you think, that the history of Iran is one that we have a lot of responsibility for?
Absolutely.
I mean, we overthrew a democratically elected
Mossadegh
leader
in
Yes.
1953.
Right. And that led to a lot of bad stuff, the installation of the Shah, and then, of course, the overthrow of the Shah, and then the regime, radical Islamic regime, and everything that followed, right? So as you go ahead, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, for every action, there's a reaction. You're absolutely right. And the Iranians constantly talk about the fact that we, the United States, subverted, if you will, their process. We reinstalled the Shah. And remember, every president after the overthrow of Mossadegh supported the Shah. Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter to a point. Remember on New Year's Eve when Carter was in Tehran and he toasted the Shah as our great ally and great democratic leader and all the rest. But that's years ago, and all we can do is look to the future.
Sure, but I'm just trying to say that the future is fraught with those kinds of issues.
Of course.
So even as we talk about installing, someone related to the Shah to take over Iran, you're talking about something that echoes to the past, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you will note, by the way, Ted Cruz did something very interesting in that dialogue you played. He called them Persians. When I hear an Iranian refer to Persians, I know they are anti the current government. It's a very important point because Persia was one thing and the Islamic Republic of Iran quite another.
I want to quickly get your thoughts on what is happening in American cities and the notion that you have American military in LA now, but being, if you will, deployed potentially to other U.S. cities. It's something that the president has spoken of. And he mentions it's because that is the core of the Democratic center of political power.
He doesn't call it Democratic. He calls it Democrat,
yeah.
which is a pejorative term. You understand that I don't know if you read the opinion of Judge Charles Breyer, who is a San Franciscan, who is a graduate of Lowell High School, whose brother, Stephen Breyer, was on the Supreme Court. But if you take a look at the judgment that Chuck Breyer made, you will see, and I think it's very important to note, that he really struck a blow for liberty. He asked about the power of the president of the United States. This is a president who assumes that he and he alone has the right to make decisions. It goes back to the idea of a unitary presidency, which we've talked about. And the simple fact is that Donald Trump proceeds from the premise that only he can make policy. One of the most disturbing things I've heard in the last few days was Donald Trump saying, it's my situation, I'm the president, I will make the decisions. And I think that, frankly, smacks of something none of us want. We don't want to have an autocrat as president of the United States. We want consultation. But let me emphasize what I said earlier. The War Powers Act does not restrain the president in a situation like this. And I think it's very important to note, Tom Eagleton, as I mentioned, who I interviewed several times, voted against his own measure because he felt that it gave the president too much power. So you'll be hearing now about members of Congress, including Ro Khanna and others, who are trying to say, well, you've got to go to the Congress. You don't have to go to the Congress if you're the president. Not on this. A declaration of war, yes, but we haven't had a declaration of war in this country since December 11th, 1941.
But I'm sorry, let me just wait. These two things are sloshing together. You're saying that the president is within his power to do militarily what he feels need be done without congressional approval. Is that what you're saying?
That is the law.
Okay. But back to America's cities, is he also within his power to turn the military on them?
That was what Chuck Breyer denounced and said.
So legally he's not, is the point.
Well, in terms of sending Marines to Los Angeles, I believe that it violates the law of the land. We don't use our military against our own citizens. And by the way, do you remember when after January 6th and the election debate was taking place, that the then chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff refused? He made a public statement, General Milley, that we will not use the military to intervene in American politics, pure and simple. And what is President Trump's response? He'd like to see him recalled to the military so he can be court-martialed. Court-martialed for what? Insubordination. So I'm only pointing this out because it has to do with the view of the presidency. It is vital that we understand how important it is who is president of the United States. May I say one word about the demonstrations which took place last Saturday? And I just want to say, we are not a monarchy. We are a republic. And as Benjamin Franklin said, if we can keep it. And what you saw graphically, brilliantly, was on that same day, June 14th, the president's 79th birthday, the viewing stands in Washington, D.C. were vacant. People were not turning out for a military parade, which, by the way, cost $50 million. And I'd still like to know where the hell they're going to get that money.
Oh,
Because,
they'll get it.
Yeah, I know. They shouldn't.
Play
They
for
shouldn't.
Brother Rothmann, the Alyssa Slotkin stuff. It works well with what he's talking
Yes,
about.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Albert. This is from just probably 2 hours ago on Capitol Hill in the Senate with Pete Hegseth testifying. This is Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator from Michigan.
Senator Slotkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people,
officers.
throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are
Okay,
there
so
to,
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement.
Do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job,
Okay.
deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous
So
administration.
they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've
Is that right?
stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and
Have
hand
you-
over to ICE. But
have
there's no
you given-
arresting going
have
on.
you-
And you know this better
Have
than
you
you're trying to
authorized
play
the
political
US
games.
military
There's
to
no
use
arresting
cyber
of U.S.
tools?
Okay, so what you're seeing
It's shocking. It's shocking. And by the way, Elizabeth Slotkin, who I vigorously supported in her recent campaign, is absolutely tremendous on this level. And I believe that what she has done is phenomenal. And I think it exposes what is a fundamental defect in the Trump administration and the way they're proceeding. And it's something every American ought to understand. To use armed forces violates the law. The Posse Comitatus Act forbids it. And by the way, just so we're clear on the Watts riots, the then governor of California, Pat Brown, was out of the state. The authorization was given by the acting governor, Glenn M. Anderson, who represented Southern California in the Congress for many years after he was lieutenant governor.
Well, the Watts riots, the 1992 Rodney King
I was in L.A. for the Rodney King riot.
I lived in L.A. at the time, and I will tell you, we were glad to see the National Guard there. But as John has pointed out, I mean, it came through the channels that the National Guard is typically, through which the National Guard is deployed.
I know we don't have time to do this, but people should go to Judge Charles Breyer's decision, which is now on appeal. It's before another court, a three-panel court rather, and we're going to see how it comes down. I'm going to suggest to you that if Chuck Breyer's decision is upheld, he should get the John F. Kennedy Profiles in Courage Award for doing exactly the right thing. That's exactly what the judiciary is supposed to do. And I do believe that when you listened to Pete Hegseth, you understand why he should not ever have been confirmed as Secretary of Defense of the United States.
John, love our visits. Thank you. You can find John Rothmann on his podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothmann. It's a brief blast of veritas thought that he offers every day to his subscribers. John
and I will see everybody a week from Thursday.
For June Swoon. I love that. Yeah.
Well, I want everybody to support what Mark Thompson is doing. This voice is so essential. And I have now delighted. I was trying to bow when you asked for the appropriate obeisance.
I do want a little fealty. I want a little of that Donald Trump fealty that everybody seems to have on display in Washington.
They are kissing my ass.
I know. It's a great thing. I don't get enough of it here. But I love seeing you, John Rothmann.
Good.
See you next week. John Rothmann, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Great to have you here. Again, we are a live show. We come to you from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on the East Coast. What up, East Coast? And 11 to 1 on the West Coast. What up, West Coast? And smash the like button if you would be so kind. It helps us in the world of YouTube with the algorithms there. Based on the number of thumbs up, they will show our show to others who may not even be aware that we're here. So it's a cool way to support. Costs you nothing. Our June Swoon is coming up a week from tomorrow. There is already some pre-swooning going on, and we hope that you will be part of our crew. June Swoon represents 2 hours. It's not broadcast. It's just us hanging out. Kim, me, Albert, Tony, a lot of those who are regular contributors and some who are not, some who just come for the party. It's a virtual meetup. You can join us from wherever you are. It's a Zoom call, really, but you don't have to have your camera on. You can just join us starting at 6:30 Pacific time, 6:30 in the evening, Pacific time, a week from tomorrow. That is June 26th. 2 hours of swooning with special guests, as I say. In order to do it, just lock up a spot. You can do it through PayPal. You'll go to our PayPal page. The PayPal links are under all of our videos and also on our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. Note June Swoon with your donation of $50. It's a fundraiser for the show, obviously. RSVP to mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Again, after you've made the donation and you've noted June Swoon or Meetup or whatever, just drop us a note to mtsmeetup@gmail.com. Now, I did mention, thank you, Albert, for that, and thank you for putting the information up. The fact is that most everybody there is going to be a contributor and having paid for their spot, et cetera, and it's a way to fundraise, but also to give you access, and there's a certain exclusivity to it, I suppose, and it's kind of a special thing. But we will be awarding some scholarship seats, and I've already awarded 2 of them. And so, if the need is great and the call is great enough, we'll award those scholarship seats.
There's never been anything like this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that. But we'll look forward to that. That'll be a week from tomorrow. on the 26th. So, right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm so excited because I have really been a fan of this person's work for quite some time. She writes for Puck News, and she's written for the Washington Post, and she's been a correspondent in Washington for so long. I love her takes on so many things, and as I say, I regularly read her stuff on Puck News, and I'm a subscriber there. You should subscribe too. How about it for Leigh Ann Caldwell? Hi, Leigh Ann Caldwell. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Mark. Can you hear me?
Hey, you know, before we start, I want to know if this is correct. Are you married to Greg Yatsko?
I am. Yes.
Now, Greg Yatsko, all right, you guys are applauding, but do you know why you're applauding? All right. He was on my old podcast, and in preparation for him, this is before, now every American has a podcast. Then it was just a handful of a jillion Americans that had a podcast. But your husband, Leigh Ann's husband, a brilliant guy who, did he run the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or he did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
During the Obama years. Yeah.
During the Obama years. And he wrote a book about it. And it was really good. I read the book, obviously, in preparation for him being on the show. So
I will totally pass this on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. He
He'll
was
be
a
thrilled.
terrific guest, and that was a terrific book. And I look forward to maybe someday he'll swing by also. We'd love to have him.
Yeah,
here.
that would be great. I'll hawk his book too. Confessions of a Nuclear Regulator.
Yes,
Greg
Confessions
Yatsko.
of a Nuclear. Exactly. That's what it was. And it's really good. And if ever you wanted to get some insight into this world that should be informed by expertise, but is now informed by utter amateurism and a clown show that is defined by fealty to a president and whether or not you pass some litmus test about J6 and all this kind of thing, you should read that book because it speaks to how complicated and nuanced and important this world of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is in handling these vital assets in a really responsible way. So
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely. I'm obviously no expert on that. You'd have to talk to Greg, but I'm a fan of Greg's.
how did you kids meet?
Oh my gosh, we met. We worked for Harry Reid together
Oh,
at the
sure.
same time. It was my very first job out of college. Yeah.
Isn't that great? Well, again, I love that kind of connection, and now on with the show. So, look, there's a lot going on at this moment in time, and I'm sure as a Washington correspondent, you have to keep track of all of these spinning plates and know which one should take center stage. Feels to me like Iran is something that has taken a lot of media oxygen, I think deservedly. We're in a position where we could be on the verge of a real full-scale confrontation militarily. Can you give me a sense of where Washington is, where the various factions in Washington might be, including, if you would, the MAGA faction, which I feel as though those people kept talking a lot in the run-up to the election about how he was a no-war president, and he was going to get us out of confrontations and out of military situations. And this is clearly a president who I think from day one has smack-talked, even militarily smack-talked, Mexico, Canada, Greenland, et cetera. And of course, just had a big parade. And again, there's nothing wrong with celebrating the distinguished history of the military, but I'd say this president feels really he likes to wrap himself in the military in ways that are odd for a guy who's a no-war president.
Yeah, he definitely loves the pomp and circumstance of the military and the power that the military gives him 100%. But what's happening in Washington, what's fascinating is this internal policy debate over war, a really serious issue, is happening in public, like online on Twitter or X, on social media, and various MAGA personality podcasts and shows. That this is not something that's happening behind the scenes, but MAGA is fighting within itself over what the president should do. I mean, just for example, today you have Tucker Carlson, who had Senator Ted Cruz on his show. Senator Cruz has been an advocate of the president taking aggressive military action against Iran. And of course, Tucker Carlson is really leading the vocal charge against that, doing so very publicly. And there was a confrontation where Tucker Carlson accused Senator Cruz of knowing nothing about the country that he wants to bomb. And so you do have the very traditional Republican hawks who are much more supportive of military action in Iran. But then you have the MAGA crowd who, as we have seen with Tucker Carlson and others, who are really, really opposed to it. And the interesting thing is that Donald Trump seems to have done a better job, so he says, and his administration says, of aligning his administration with like-minded people who agree in supposedly his no war, anti-interventionism stance. But this fight is still happening. This argument is still happening. And there's the Israel component that's playing very heavily into it too. You have the Republicans in the party who say that the Republican Party is very pro-Israel and it is an ally and it should be defended at all costs. And so you have all these different competing factions, and Donald Trump is seriously going back and forth. It is sometimes hour by hour on what he's thinking on this, is what I'm told.
Yeah, I'm, by the way, if we ran that Carlson Cruz back and forth, if anybody's curious, you can find it last hour, and we'll drop it as a separate video too with commentary. But I see the coalition that's formed on the we need to go in, we need to defend Israel at all costs. These are our allies in the region. This is the only democracy in the region, whatever the default position is. That coalition is made up of, again, traditional right-wingers, also the Christian right. I think of Mike Johnson, who's very much right. That's sort of their thing. And they seem, because I think of that coalition who's in it as sort of an unstoppable force. So if you add to the conversation the German chancellor who said Israel's done our dirty work and we need to, now support that work. They've done the hard stuff, essentially, is what the German chancellor said. I see almost a momentum, toward becoming more involved. But what you say is so compelling, which is Trump himself seems to be leaving his options open based on which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the New York Times had a great piece yesterday where they kind of outlined the timeline here, where on Friday, so the day after the attack started, on Friday, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and National Archivist and all the jobs he has, right. He came out first and he said that the United States was not involved in this at all. But the Times reports that the next morning, Donald Trump woke up and turned on Fox and Friends, Saturday morning's Fox and Friends, who was glowingly talking about the war, about what Israel is doing in Iran. And so Donald Trump decided, oh, well, let's take some credit here. Let's get involved in this from a perception and a PR perspective. And so it is, there's always been the thing about Donald Trump is that he often takes the advice of the last person he talked to. This was very big, especially in the first Trump administration. And he's kind of seems to be resorting to that now. It depends on who is in his ear in the moment. Donald Trump told reporters today, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "Nobody knows what I'm going to do," which might be the most true statement that he's uttered.
Yeah, he seems to sort of enjoy, only I know, and even I don't know.
Right, exactly. Because it changes.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary thing. I want to pivot a little bit to the big, beautiful bill, as it's called. You've written about it and about sort of these cultural wedge issues that, sort of inform it in some way, but the executive power issues that I see shoehorned in there, to give the president a lot of room. to essentially defy whatever court judgments might come down on executive orders that he's made. But I wonder if you can speak to those things that you find might be divisive enough to either derail it or delay it or sideline it. But what are the things in the big, beautiful bill that are being discussed openly anyway that you feel might sort of be politically not palatable?
Yeah, so I'm actually not super pessimistic on this bill. I actually think that it's going to pass. I just don't know when, and I don't know what form it's going to be. But too many Republicans I talk to admit that like failure is just not an option. They will get there somehow. I think
and sorry to interrupt, but that's because politically they can't take the heat that is associated with voting against it. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, there's a couple things. They do not want to be blamed for a tax increase that Americans will get. Most Americans, not all, will get if this bill. So what they're doing, just to be clear, they're not even doing anything amazing here. They are literally extending the current tax rates that are already in place, that have been in place since 2017 from Donald Trump's first term. And there's other things involved too, but that's the crux of the bill. That's why this bill exists. And so they say failure is not an option because they will be blamed for taxes being increased on most Americans. But then there's also political pitfalls with this bill, as we're really starting to see in polling this week. In my Puck story that's going to publish tonight, I get into this a bit, that, most Americans, either a plurality of or most Americans, do not support this bill. A lot of Americans don't know what's in it because it's really hard to campaign and tout, oh, we just extended your current tax rate. That's not really like a political winner. But the Americans that do know what's in it don't really like what's in this bill. And the reason is, of course, like to get back to your original question, of course, there's the Medicaid issue. There are Republicans in many states whose states have expanded Medicaid. They really rely on federal funding to pay for this Medicaid. And there will be cuts to Medicaid through this bill, especially the Senate version. And so that's what they're grappling with now, is the Senate actually is making steeper cuts to Medicaid than the House did. And so that's probably the most problematic thing for some of these Republicans.
And the way they could get around that, Leigh Ann, I'm sorry, you're saying that they're looking at making some more modest cuts, or they're looking to how do they get around that? If it should be a political landmine for them, for sure.
Yeah, and polling is suggesting that it absolutely is a political landmine for them. And how do they get around that? So the problem is with the House bill, they were trying maybe not so effectively, but trying to frame the cuts as just getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, which people took a lot of issue with that, and that wasn't completely accurate. And people who were able-bodied were most likely, or who needed Medicaid, were most likely going to lose some of their Medicaid benefits too. But when the Senate got a hold of the bill, their goal was to reduce the cost, even, how do you say this? Reduce the deficit anymore, but it increases the deficit. So they wanted the bill to be cheaper. Sure. And to do that, they made even steeper cuts to Medicaid. So now it's even harder to make that argument that it's just waste, fraud, and abuse, especially when you have Senator Josh Hawley, who is a Republican from Missouri, who is like the spokesperson for being against Medicaid cuts right now, and basically bashing his entire party for slashing the program. So that's going to be one of the most complicated things.
So are the votes there then, Leigh Ann? I mean,
they're not right now. They're not there right now.
But you think it will pass still?
Eventually, yes, I do. In my story that publishes tonight, I lay out the politics of why I think it's going to pass. And the thing is, it's really interesting, is Donald Trump, of course, has a ton of sway. This is why it passed the House of Representatives. It would not have passed without him. But Donald Trump has endorsed about half of the Republican senators who are running for re-election. The ones he has not yet endorsed are the ones from swing purple states, the ones who are most likely to cause him problems on this big, beautiful bill. And so he is refusing to endorse, I'm told, in large part because he wants to dangle out the prospect of an endorsement. And so until he gets what he wants, which is passage of this bill. So, there's always the threat of Donald Trump coming in and backing a primary opponent if some of these senators don't get in line.
And he still has the political capital for that to really matter, without
He
question.
does. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just in a last minute or so, or last couple of minutes, I want to just touch on something that you used the word security, and I want to get to security as an issue for public figures, for legislators, for high-profile members of the Congress. I mean, what happened in Minnesota was horrifying. There's this stochastic terrorism. There's the political violence, these one-offs that seem to be more a part of the American landscape now than ever. And we even heard Mitt Romney talking about it, how he feared for himself and his family. And we've heard other legislators talk about this now. I mean, this is obviously a contemporary concern in Washington and beyond as they go back to their districts. I wonder if you could speak to how, just what that atmosphere is, but also how it might influence policy. I hate to, take it back to a policy thing, but I feel as though this is sort of policy at gunpoint in a way.
Yeah. So I'm actually really glad you brought up Mitt Romney. I don't even know why I had forgotten about how open Mitt Romney had been, especially toward the end. There was chatter about him endorsing Kamala Harris in the presidential race. And a large reason he didn't want to get involved is because he feared for himself and for his family, for their safety. But this absolutely does impact policy. It impacts people's desire to do the job, to even run for Congress and stay in Congress. And it makes members extremely nervous about going against their party or their president. We heard this a lot in Donald Trump's first term, where members, especially toward the end, said that they were very fearful about going against the president because of the threats to their lives and to their family's life that they would receive if they did. And so, and I'm not saying that this is just a political violence thing on the right. Political violence is like bipartisan these days, unfortunately. It's not a partisan issue, but it is playing a major role in how these lawmakers think about how they do their job, what risks they are going to take to do their job. We saw in Minnesota that it was absolutely politically motivated, and it happened shortly after she took this very difficult vote. And so it is really tragic, and members, I am told from members themselves and their aides, that they are absolutely nervous and scared sometimes to do their jobs.
Yeah. And I understand the need to point out violence on the left. That softball game, what was that, a decade ago or 8 years ago, where they took out Steve Scalise, that was,
I think. Yeah.
So, it's real. That was left-wing violence. The MAGA violence, again, I'll just say it. It seems as though the right is more animated right now, and these are my thoughts, not yours, by these calls to take up arms. And I just think it also dovetails a lot of stuff sort of culturally. I think we fetishize some certain things associated with the military, and we wear our camo, and we have and I just think it's a moment in time that, as I say, has been supercharged by the rhetoric of this president and the intensely divisive rhetoric that you hear in Washington now. You're sort of the us versus them, I'd argue, has gone to another level. So leaving aside the political violence, I think you'd have to concede that, right? That there just seems to be a supercharged aspect to the kind of rhetoric we're hearing, like enemies of the state. This sort of thing. Don't you think, Leigh Ann?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And it's a good thing to remind about that too, because it becomes so normalized. Like I am in Washington and I hear this on a daily, weekly basis, and it does become normalized. And we have to remind ourselves that this is not normal and that's not how it should be. And so it's very polarizing times, in a very bitterly divisive and angry moment that we are living in.
Yeah, no, indeed. I promised to get you out of here now, so I'm going to let you go. But it's been such a pleasure visiting with you, and I read your stuff all the time. I'll look forward to the column that's dropping tonight, and we'll have a link to Puck under this video, ways people can subscribe and enjoy your stuff. It's really, really great, and give my best to your husband.
Thanks, Mark. It was so great to be on, and I will. I'm sure he'd love to come chat with you at some time.
Good. We'll hope to have you both on again soon.
Oh yeah, we can do a joint appearance. Probably
that would be
not.
Fun.
I would be like
too.
mute. I would be silent during all the nuclear stuff. I'm just like, hi.
Well, hey, the nuclear stuff's important, so I'll look forward to that conversation happening. Thanks, Leigh Ann. All the best, and appreciate you being
Mark.
here. All right, Leigh Ann Caldwell. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at? Stay at home and get baked.
She's great. You'll like her stuff. Does some great reporting from Washington, so I encourage you to check out Leigh Ann Caldwell. And this I just seen. Political violence thrusts potential 2028 candidates onto the national stage. More than half a dozen potential 2028 contenders have personally experienced political violence or had to manage the response to such incidents. Interesting. Just on the heels of what we were just talking about. The pace of political violence is so quickly accelerated in the United States that the country is poised to field a widening group of 2028 contenders who have experienced it in some form. At least half a dozen public officials who may run for president in 2028 have either personally faced political violence, lost friends in such plots, or had to manage political unrest in their states. That's how it's so relevant to the political discourse and to the political landscape that we find ourselves in, Joan Hollywood, how about a $10 super sticker? And thank you for that. We are a crowd-funded show, so I appreciate those in the crowd who are able, funding us.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Super sticker from Joan Hollywood. Wow. Love that name. I also have others to recognize. Nullifidian, who's a regular contributor to the show with a $2 super sticker. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you for saving me from the guy who fixed my roof and the lady selling me bacon-wrapped hot dogs after my shows. You and Madam Puppy Killer must be proud. That is, to help me with that, Kim, you speak,
Hegseth.
Luis. Hegseth is the...
He's talking about Hegseth, yeah.
I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I've got to start reading these in conjunction with the story that we did an hour ago that they relate to. Yeah, it's a little harder off of the... but thank you, Luis. Tucker Carlson was attacking Ted Cruz on whatever show he has. Yeah, Jim, it's the Tucker Carlson show. Apparently, we played a little bit of it last hour. Thanks for the $10 super chat. We did play it, and if you want to see it, we cut out, in other words, we show you the pertinent part. Trevor Starr in Hollywood, $26 super chat. It is his birthday. He says, Mark, I usually donate $10.10. But since today is my birthday, I decided to splurge. So here is $26 in celebration of my 26th birthday. It was many years ago, but it was freaking awesome.
Happy birthday, Trevor.
Yeah, I am really excited for you, Trev.
There's never been anything like
Well,
this.
there you go. Apparently, there's never been anything like it. Good stuff. Happy birthday, pal. Hope I'll see you at the June Swoon meetup next week. Chaplain Fred. Hi, Mark, Kim, and Albert. Nice when Albert gets a shout out to
Albert, thank you.
Chaplain Fred says this in a $20 super chat. Please show me the Ring King, Mark. LOL. Love the way you started the show with your opinionated rhetoric. Thank you, Mark. Oh, wow. Who's the Ring King?
I don't know. I was thinking, do you have a ring that you asked?
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
No, I don't have any
no
rings. No.
Maybe you need to get a ring so people can,
Yeah,
No,
maybe
this
it's a kiss the ring type of
Yeah.
mention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It must be.
He has a bathrobe somewhere that makes him.
He
more
is,
distinguished.
but no, the ring.
I think it's show me the ring, King Mark.
Yeah. Oh, good. The comma would
yeah.
be there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love the way that we have to decode this, which is. But I'm happy. I'm happy to decode a super chat, especially when it's for $20. I mean, that's how I am. That's how my life, my distinguished career in broadcasting has come to me celebrating a $20 contribution by somebody. But the Chaplain Fred is great, and he mentions this, and we have recently begun the show with sort of more opinionated rhetoric, so glad it's landing cleanly with you. And the Ring King, I think maybe Albert is right or Kim is right that it's show me the ring, King Mark.
Yes.
Also, King Mark should be capitalized at the king there, but I don't know that would matter. I think I still would be confused. I'm sorry, Chaplain. This is a long way of me saying I'm sorry. Yeah. I would like to apologize for what I've done.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
For mangling
Yeah.
Chaplain Fred's super chat.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Sorry. Super sticker from The Folly. A $10 super sticker. Thank you for your support of the show, The Folly. By the way, it's The Folly, THA, which I
Big
really
shout
like.
out.
Big shout out.
The Folly.
The Folly. Great happy birthday to Trevor and many more, bro, from Rev P. Yeah, bro. Hey, bro, happy birthday, bro. I heard it's your birthday, bro. Hey, bro, there's nothing I can do, bro. Happy birthday to MTS legend Trevor Starr. Best wishes, pal, from Luis.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Wow, Trevor gets a lot of love. Mark, this is from Richard Delamater. $5 super chat says the Mark Thompson Show has the smartest audience in all the
Shire.
It's
a Tolkien reference.
Oh, that's so great. I love that. F. Ted Cruz, he says. Wow.
Why are you yelling?
It's where the hobbits live.
The hobbits live in the Shire?
Yeah.
Wow. What's their political setup and configuration in the Shire, Kim?
Pretty sure they're against evil. And they're
that's a solid choice. Yeah,
they have a
solid
pretty
choice.
fun community filled with dancing and food and hairy feet.
No, they're happy. That's not
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah, I think the happy thing is not, the dancing.
That was very inappropriate.
I don't know. I'm just saying it could be.
This is no picnic, no summer camp.
Yeah, this is the Shire. If you're not a dancing, happy person, get out of here. Lucy McAllister, my favorite McAllister, with a super sticker for $10.
Big shout out.
Appreciate that, Lucy. I wonder if Lucy McAllister will be joining our June Swoon. That would be kind of awkward for you, huh, Kim?
No, I would love it.
Oh, would you? Okay.
I welcome all the cousins.
All right. Come hit the like button, says Jim. That's true. Got to smash that like button.
Smash it
like
with your iron rod.
Gotta. Please hit a thumbs up. Breaking our ass every day for you people. Damn it, smash that like
Smash
button.
it with your iron rod.
Not illegal to pay hush money, says Champagne Wishes.
Regarding the Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth.
Hirono.
Let me give you a pro tip on this, okay? When your reputation for multiple sexual assaults, potentially, certainly multiple sexual harassment reports, a history of open drunkenness and inability to avoid drinking on the job, and it does affect your judgment, your utter incompetence in running a charity, actually it was 2 charities, to the point that you were removed from your position running those charities. And now your obvious incompetence in running the Department of Defense. When the senator in the back and forth references that $50,000 in hush money was paid to one woman who made these allegations of sexual assault, and they were quite specific, and she did go to the police. I'm going to say it's kind of a thin ice kind of play to go, listen, not illegal to pay hush money. All right, let's just get that straight. It's not illegal to pay hush money. I mean, just think it's kind of a weak sauce defense. I mean, I've just laid bare how much of a train wreck this guy is. But you're saying there's one part of the train wreck, though. I just want to say it's not illegal to pay hush money. You know what? You got me. You're right. It's not. And that's what we said, actually, around the Donald Trump hush money that he paid to Stormy Daniels. It's not illegal. It really isn't.
The way he did it was
the way he did it was illegal.
Part. Yeah.
Mark and Kim, please consider Judy W. for the June Swoon Scholarship.
Okay.
Pretty please. Kim, do you know Judy W.?
I know of Judy W. I think that's a great thing. I don't know if, though, yes, I agree.
Well, all I can say is I need to get some kind of email into the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. But we really don't have, there are like 3 of these seats and 2 of them have already gone. So they just have really one more. Because the idea was to bring people in. It's a fundraiser for the show. And sadly, you know, it just, it takes money to drive things. So I wish I could, believe me, I'd love to just do a meetup where we just get everybody on board, and maybe we can do that. But in a sense, that's what we do every day.
But you're the one who said you were doing scholarships, right?
Yeah, no, I said I was doing the scholarship. It's my fault. So maybe I'll up it to 5. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, and of course, my problem is that I'm the softest touch in the world. You know this. So anybody with any story, I'll go, okay, you can have one. All right, you 2. All right, we'll make it 10. All right, 15. All right, there are 20 people who are scholarship. And then you just end up doing an event where, of course, we're doing it and it undercuts the entire thing. But I do want to try to have everybody there who wants to be there. And it would be nice if we can, you know, take care of people who can't afford it. Inlay says, does the $50 have to be paid for at PayPal only or with chat pay? We're just set up for PayPal. So if they've got a credit card thing, you can do it. And all the information is protected. You don't need to worry about that. Everything's secure. We do it through PayPal because it's just easier for us to keep track of it through PayPal. And also PayPal takes less. If you put it in the chat, you know, YouTube takes 30%, which is fine. As I say, I don't have a problem with that because they make it so easy for people to support the show. And they do allow us onto this platform in the way they do. But just for this event, we recommend and need the PayPal stream to be the way we do it. It's also just easier to keep track of. So there are PayPal links under all of our videos. And if you just want to become a monthly supporter, as you know, they're under all our videos for that reason too. Patreon and PayPal, both. I just wish one time a brave Democrat would ask any former Fox host, does Fox News lie? And if they waffle, follow up with, didn't Fox pay $750 million for lying? Put them on the hot seat. Yeah, you know what? You're right. I don't know who that is asked to, but you're saying, hey, ask one of these ex-hosts that question. The hearing that they're involved in on Capitol Hill today, from which we played a couple of clips, and we've got one more I can even play for you. It's about money primarily, and so they ask these questions relative to money being spent, and that's the reason that I think a question like that might be harder to shoehorn in. But there are plenty of questions about policy, so perhaps you could get it in there. If you ask the Secretary of Defense this guy, Pete Hegseth, he is just a propaganda machine. I mean, he's unbelievable. He spins, he talks over people. That's why he got the job. Trump hired people who are PR ninjas. And Hegseth, it's ironic because Hegseth is a PR mess. He is a PR nightmare. If you're handling the public relations for Pete Hegseth, you're on constant alert and you're constantly doing crisis control, right? Yet he got the job because he is good on TV. That's the reason he got the job. He spins so well. He talks over people. He talks about Trump. He talks about the military in this proud way that completely obliterates whatever the issue is. So it is weird and probably difficult to ask him any kind of question along those lines. I do want to give the boys and girls that last, the Tammy Duckworth thing, Albert, which we have yet to play. This is Hegseth talking to Tammy Duckworth, again, the senator, this morning on Capitol Hill.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about more than all of this is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the war fighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming bases for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who, in his citation for the Medal of Honor, includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political, and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we careful.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DoD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DoD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so
Secretary
ordered.
Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words.
By the way,
Yet you are
Albert, just
diverting
stop for a
untold
second.
DoD
You understand what you
resources
just
and
entered in the
attention to
record essentially is a trail back to the order that would allow troops to then be deployed to American cities and to handle various disturbances. Go ahead, Albert. Thanks. Sir.
Fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DoD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Tough not to love that. She is magic, isn't she?
Good day, sir.
Yeah.
On fire. Wow. What I
Really.
learned today on the Mark Thompson show, do not underestimate and do not mess with the Asian ladies because they are coming for you.
On fire, and she knows what she's talking about. She should be running the Department of Defense. I mean, real practical knowledge. Also,
Oh, yeah.
I'd suggest she has strategic knowledge. She has policy knowledge.
She's
But
a
anyway,
war hero. She's a war hero.
Of course, yeah. But he is really Hegseth overmatched in these situations. So, hey, before we leave, I wanted to get something in that we have been trying to get in. There are a couple things we've been trying to get in, and you can forgive us because we're trying to get the Iran war in. We're trying to get domestic unrest. We're trying to get protests in. We're trying to get the political violence in Minnesota. There's a lot of stuff that we're confronting. But I wanted to get some law and disorder, and I also will tell you that tomorrow I really want to address what's happening at EPA. EPA has been turned on the planet and turned on America in a scary way. People who work for EPA nationwide are being told, don't enforce EPA regulations. Don't enforce any corporate polluter regulations, any corporate polluter violations. Google it, find it. You'll see that I'm right. This is a dark time in America for the environment, something that we should care so desperately about. I don't care if you are global warming, whatever. This isn't about that. This is about your clean water. This is about your clean air, your kids, grandkids breathing air that doesn't have toxins running through it that's going to kill them and create cancers before they're even 50 years old. It's a scary time, and yet this administration is hell-bent on completely erasing all regulations, protections on water, soil, and air. And it's happening in a big, big way, and it's happening at an unprecedented rate, just as all of these changes are. And I'd suggest, because on Wednesday we normally do a segment called It's the Planet Stupid, Belinda is away. She's got a lot of summer vacation, that kind of stuff planned, but that you keep your eye on that ball because it's a really important one to keep an eye on. And let your legislators know that you're not happy about that. You got to make noise about this stuff. So I'm
The Mark Thompson Show.
But real quick, let's do it. Here's some law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
The heist, the $100 million heist that we told you about. It had diamonds, gold, rubies, emeralds stolen in the largest U.S. jewelry heist in history. They've made an arrest.
What?
Yeah. 7 Southern California men charged in connection with what federal prosecutors described as the largest jewelry heist in U.S. history. All of those people are from the L.A. area. They're accused of stealing roughly $100 million in gold, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and luxury watches from an armored car. It was July of 2022. We reported on it. I love a heist. I love a caper. Not saying it's right, but the one thing I liked about the caper was that nobody got hurt. They were indicted, though, yesterday. 2 counts of conspiracy to commit theft. The defendants range in age from the 30s to 60. 5 of the men also charged with 2 counts of conspiracy to interfere with commerce by robbery, etc. Anyway, there's a crack in that case, and I think there's more information to come on that.
It's the largest U.S. jewelry heist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still wonder about an armored car vehicle stopping. Apparently, they trailed this armored car from this jewelry show in San Mateo, which is in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, all the way down to this place called Lebec, where there was like a truck stop, a rest stop. And so one of them, it's a 2-man crew in the armored car, goes into, get something to eat, go to the bathroom, whatever, and the other is in the truck and apparently fell asleep while these guys broke into the truck and took all the jewels. So what I'm saying is, I don't know, just seems like you might wake up if people are breaking into the back of your truck. There might be an alarm. I'm surprised there wasn't. I think there's more to this than, gosh, I just fell asleep and I guess they got the 100 million. Really? I think there's another shoe to drop on this. So now that they've made these arrests, we'll see if indeed it does drop. Trump's pardon spree, saving criminals up to $1 billion in restitution and fines.
Well, that's so nice of him.
Yeah, his executive clemency has freed its beneficiaries from debts that were owed to victims and also the U.S. government. Apparently, Jamie Raskin's crew on the House Judiciary Committee tallied up what the pardon recipients still owed the government and their victims. The biggest sums were owed by Trump campaign donors convicted of federal financial crimes. These are white-collar criminals. Not only has President Trump issued an unprecedented number of pardons in his second term, he's used his clemency powers to take an estimated $1.3 billion away from victims and survivors of crime, allowing perpetrators to keep profiting from their crimes, a sharp break from established practice. So, all of you who skated, congratulations. You got off the hook for some major money. The Justice Department is asking for an investigation of New York school. Listen to this. New York State education officials might face a U.S. Justice Department investigation into potential Title VI of the Civil Rights Act violations related to a public school's chosen mascot.
What?
The U.S. Department of Education announcing it has asked the DOJ to investigate the New York State Department of Education and Board of Regents for banning Massapequa, New York's high school mascot, which is the Chiefs. The mascot refers to the tribe that formerly occupied New York's Long Island. Both the New York State Department of Education, this is a quote, and the Board of Regents violated federal anti-discrimination law and disrespected the people of Massapequa by implementing an absurd policy prohibiting the use of Native American mascots while allowing mascots derived from European national origin to exist. That's what the Education Secretary Linda McMahon said. So, of course, they were eliminating the Chiefs because it was cultural appropriation, this kind of thing. But
apparently that goes against the Constitution because we can have other types of white-related mascot names, and we're now not able to have the Native American mascot names.
Yes, apparently that is the new position.
This is a reverse argument. Okay.
Trump's use of the military in LA is unprecedented. It could just be the beginning. The DOJ arguing that Donald Trump has the power to take control of the state National Guard units wherever he wants. It is a preview of what could happen in cities across the United States. The brazen assertion of presidential power, as is noted here, shows just how far the Trump administration is going to empower this president, and hints at what the president might do next. Joseph Nunn, who is a counsel at the Brennan Center of Liberty and National Security, focusing on the U.S. military's domestic activities, says that after the administration had offered, quote, an unbelievably maximalist position on Trump's authority to use the military domestically, he said it's, quote, completely incompatible with American civic traditions. The deployment of thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines in California, just the latest example of Donald Trump working to erode a long-standing tradition that keeps the military from being used for domestic law enforcement. And finally, the man arrested in the hit and run that injured the No Kings protester in Riverside, California, just outside of Los Angeles, he has been arrested. According to police, a black SUV drove into the crowd, struck a young woman before fleeing the scene, and video posted online showed the moment that this happened. He turned sharply into the demonstrators and accelerated, hitting at least one person before driving off. Using the SUV's license plate, robbery homicide detectives identified the driver, 50-year-old Russell Prentice of Riverside. He was arrested and booked into the Robert Presley Detention Center in Riverside, where he awaits charges for assault with a deadly weapon and hit and run. That is Law and Disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
I wish we could linger, but we cannot. Kim doesn't want me to. I'd like to stay all afternoon, but she's got a show to do, the After Party Live, which you can jump over to see on the After Party Live station. Tomorrow. What's that, honey? What's that, baby girl?
I have an addendum to the the Law and Disorder. Karen Reed, and in her case, has been found not guilty of murder.
Wow, that's a huge case.
What?
I may get Courtney in tomorrow to talk about that Karen Reed case. That is absolutely huge. And what am I seeing this? Hulk Hogan has been hospitalized. Is that right? Oh, no, brother. The Hulkster in the hospital. I hope that he gets out of the hospital soon. Do you know about this,
Get him
Albert?
some vitamins, yeah.
Oh, my God. Get him some. Oh, man.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
That is all. Thank you, everyone.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
We are out of time. Thank you for all the help and support, and until tomorrow, bye-bye.